In the first shots we see a 12-year-old boy named Nikolai refusing to go with a woman from Child Welfare Service. He says he will stay at home, because his brother will come back for him soon. The policeman preparing the boy's documents says that the brother's promise is not to be believed. Nikolai still doesn't want to go anywhere. The woman promised the boy that as soon as his brother was free, he would definitely take him, but right now they had to go. Nikolai had no choice but to obey. Next we see women painters who paint poles for very little pay. Unlike her colleagues, Valentina was very sad. She confessed that she had received a letter. It turns out that her sister, whom she hadn't seen in 9 years, had passed away. The woman's eldest son is in prison, and the youngest has no close relatives except Valentina. But the woman does not want to take custody of the boy, because she does not have enough money to support the child. Nikolai now lives in an orphanage. The children are happy to have candy, because it's a huge rarity here. But even sweets don't lift Nikolai's spirits. Valentina lives alone, with no children or husband. During dinner, the woman is not averse to drinking alcohol. She can't stop thinking about the orphan boy, especially before she goes to sleep. There's a statuette of the Virgin Mary by her bedside, which Valentina thought was a sign from above. She brought a cot into the room, wondering if there was enough room for one more person. At the orphanage, the boys have to take turns cleaning. At night Nikolai could not sleep at all. Valentina came to the personnel department to get a certificate of employment and a positive character reference. This is needed in order to get custody of the boy. Valentina asked not to mention her previous child in the document, as it could discredit her. One of the boys wants to make friends with Nikolai. Meanwhile, Valentina puts the house in order so that Nikolai arrives at a clean apartment. She pours all the alcohol into the sink, deciding to start a new life. The next day Valentina took a bus and came to the social services. The social worker said that Valentina was the last hope for Nikolai, because his convicted brother is unlikely to ever be given custody. The woman did admit that she used to have a child. He was born with a disability, and she decided to keep him in an orphanage since the baby needed special care. Despite this, the social worker agreed to give Valentina a probationary period. Nikolai, who was very agitated, was invited to talk to the principal. The boy does not want to live with his aunt, still hoping that the brother will take him. But the principal convinced the boy not to give up his aunt's custody. The first time he saw Valentina, he said she looked nothing like his mother. Then Nikolai packed his things, and after saying goodbye to his friend, left. On their way home, Valentina and her nephew stopped at the market to buy him some sneakers. They missed the bus, so Valentina bought hot cakes to eat. For the first time in a long time, the boy smiled. Valentina and her nephew arrived home late. Maria, Valentina's neighbor, immediately got to know the boy. The woman showed Nikolai her humble home. The boy promised the aunt that he would not stay with her long, because the brother would come back for him soon. Soon Nikolai had to go to a new school. The school principal agreed to admit the boy to 7th grade, even though she was wary of him because he was from an orphanage. Valentina lost her job. It was an unpleasant surprise for her. She wonders where to get money now to raise her adopted son. During lunch she asked Nikolai how he was doing at school. The boy answered the questions in monosyllables. As he was taking out the trash he heard a girl calling for help. He went to the sound of the voice and saw local hooligans taking the girl's kitten. Nikolai stood up for her by pushing one of the boys. Later Valentina asked her nephew to take the pies to Maria. The woman, who looked ill, invited the boy into the house and treated him to an apple. It turned out that Maria used to be a dancer. She is still passionate about Spanish culture, and you can see it in her interior. Now Maria cannot dance because of her health, and everyone has long forgotten about her. Nikolai also learned that both Maria and Valentina had lost their jobs. When he heard that Nikolai dreamed of living with his brother, Maria laughed. Nikolai did not want to look at the drunken woman, so he left. The next day, on his way to school, he saw schoolchildren taunting a mute man. In the afternoon, another friend, Irina, came over to Valentina's house and offered her a drink. Valentina declined, as she had decided to give up her addiction. The woman doesn't know how she is going to make it now without a job. They did not hear the boy enter the house. He overheard them talking about Valentina's child, whom she had placed in an orphanage because of disability. Nikolai refused to eat dinner because he was uncomfortable looking at the intoxicated woman. The women sat at the table into the night, and Irina sang songs. Nikolai didn't like it very much. The next day Valentina came to her employer and asked him to give her some work, but he was powerless to do anything for her. The man is perplexed as to why the woman took her sister's child, whom she has not seen in almost 10 years. Valentina cried out of despair. At school, a boy named Victor had money missing. The principal told each of the students to put the contents of their briefcases on the table. Nikolai ended up with the money. Realizing that his classmate had set him up, Nikolai attacked him. Valentina was able to get a job at the local store. She bought candy for her nephew to make him happy. He asked permission to mail the candy to his friends at the orphanage. The school principal summoned Valentina for a serious talk to discuss the behavior of Nikolai, who put up a fight right in the classroom. She threatened that if something like that happened again, the boy would be expelled from school. When he saw that same mute man on the street, Nikolai volunteered to help him. In the man's house there were many beautiful fakes made of wood. Nikolai was delighted with such skillful work. Upon learning that Nikolai was Valentina's nephew, the man became abruptly thoughtful. Nikolai's classmates arranged with the older students to punish him together. But the boy made it clear that he was capable of standing up for himself. The guys did not want to deal with him. Nikolai helped the mute man look for suitable branches from which later it would be possible to make wooden products. It turned out that the man's name was Timofey. He is a friend of the local sailor, who allowed Nikolai to go up to the ship. He came home late. Valentina told him not to communicate with Timofey anymore, but the boy is not going to listen to her. At school, the teacher asked Nikolai to stay and told him that his conflicts with the classmates would not do any good. But the boy does not consider himself guilty. Nikolai spends more and more time with his new friend. Valentina does not like it very much. She does not want Nikolai to communicate with Timofey. To vent his anger, the boy threw stones into the water. It was nighttime, and he still hadn't come home. The worried Valentina went to look for him. All this time Nikolai was at Timofey's house. The boy told him about his brother, who had already been released from prison. Nikolai was very surprised when he saw Timofey's picture of Valentina as a young woman. The woman came to get her nephew and told him to go home. She also told Timofey not to appear in their lives anymore. It turned out that Timofey was Valentina's ex-husband, who had left her alone with the newborn child many years ago. The woman forbade the boy to see Timofey, but he had no intention of complying with her request. Nikolai was not afraid to go back to the orphanage. In the afternoon he went to the post office and asked if there was a letter from his brother. The postmistress said that Valentina had already taken the letter. After waiting for Valentina to leave, Nikolai stealthily went into the house, took the letter from her purse, and read it. His brother wrote to Valentina that he was giving up custody of Nikolai, so Valentina remained a sole guardian. Nikolai blames the aunt for everything, believing that she encouraged his brother to give up custody. The boy is also convinced that Valentina takes care of him only for the sake of social benefits. After finding out the bus schedule, in the morning the boy, despite the aunt's prohibition, came to Timofey. In the meantime, Valentina learned from Irina that Nikolai is not in school at the moment. She is at a loss, because she cannot find a common language with the boy. Timofey gave Nikolai a wooden toy ship. The boy was delighted. Timofey also asked him not to come here again, so as not to quarrel with Valentina. The boy was very upset by this. He felt unnecessary. At home Nikolai hurriedly packed his things. Valentina did not suspect anything yet and called him in for dinner. The woman tried to convince Nikolai that she had not forced his brother to give up the custody, but the boy did not believe her. Because of the stress, Valentina started drinking again. Later Nikolai saw her drunk in the kitchen. The woman asked him to leave. After taking his things and taking some money from Valentina's purse, Nikolai ran away from home and took a bus to go to his brother. Once in another city, the boy found his brother's house, where some drunks were sitting. Obviously, the older brother was not happy about the appearance of Nikolai. The boy realized that Valentina was right. He went into his old room and fell asleep. At night he was awakened by his brother's inadequate friend. Nikolai saw many sleeping drunk people in the apartment, including his brother. Without thinking long, the boy left. Now he doesn't know where to go. While waiting for a train to nowhere, Nikolai cried at the station. A dog sat down next to him, a stray just like him. The boy was left all alone in an unfamiliar city. Valentina, feeling helpless at that moment, prayed for her nephew. Nikolai secretly boarded the train,